Welcome to Global Facts. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Why are there not more people talking about Hungary's bold pivot on the world stage? In the heart of Europe, Hungary is making a dramatic pivot under Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. Once firmly anchored in the EU and NATO, Hungary is now forging controversial alliances with China and the BRICS bloc. This isn't just a diplomatic spat, it's a direct challenge to the post-Cold War order, shaking the foundations of European unity and Western democracy. For the EU, it's an internal rebellion. For China and Russia, Hungary is a strategic foothold inside the West. The world is watching as Budapest's high-stakes gamble tests alliances and redraws the map of global influence. Hungary stands at the crossroads of two worldviews: liberal democracy versus nationalistic authoritarian pragmatism. The outcome is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Europe's future may hinge on which path Hungary chooses. Viktor Orbán's return to power in 2010 marked a dramatic turning point in Hungary's modern history. After years in opposition, Orbán swept back into office with a bold vision and a promise to redefine Hungary's role on the world stage. His government quickly set out to challenge the status quo, signaling a break from the country's previous, more Western-oriented trajectory. Central to this new direction was the Eastern Opening policy, which reimagined Hungary not just as a member of the European Union, but as a strategic bridge between East and West. Orbán's vision was to leverage Hungary's unique geographic and cultural position, connecting Europe with rising powers in Asia and beyond. Orbán argued that relying solely on the EU and NATO was a strategic mistake, especially in a rapidly changing global landscape. He began actively cultivating relationships with Russia, China, and Turkey, countries that offered economic opportunities and alternative political models. These new partnerships were not just about trade or investment, they were about forging a new identity for Hungary, one less dependent on Western approval. This shift was rooted in a powerful narrative of national sovereignty and historical grievance. Orbán tapped into deep-seated anxieties among Hungarian voters, many of whom felt left behind by globalization and wary of what they saw as heavy-handed EU oversight. The Eastern Opening promised a path forward that prioritized Hungarian interests and values, resonating with those who longed for greater independence. Over time, what began as a pragmatic economic policy evolved into a sweeping ideological realignment. Orbán openly praised the concept of illiberal democracy, positioning Hungary as a model for countries seeking alternatives to liberal Western norms. Domestically, he consolidated power, reshaping institutions and tightening his grip on the political landscape. As much of Europe distanced itself from Beijing and Moscow, Hungary moved in the opposite direction. The government welcomed Chinese investment, especially in infrastructure and technology, and maintained crucial energy ties with Russia. Orbán's administration even shielded its eastern partners from EU criticism, further deepening these controversial alliances. The Eastern Opening was never a sudden pivot, but rather the result of a carefully executed decade-long strategy. Each step, each new partnership and policy, built upon the last, gradually shifting Hungary's orientation and priorities. Today, Hungary's deepening alignment with China and its growing interest in joining BRICS are the logical culmination of Orbán's vision. These moves signal a willingness to challenge the European mainstream and embrace a multipolar world order. As Hungary continues its eastward turn, the country is not only reshaping its own identity, but also forcing Europe to reconsider its assumptions about unity, influence, and the future of the continent. Hungary's partnership with China is the centerpiece of its Eastern Opening, a bold strategy that sets it apart from many of its European neighbors. While others in the region have grown increasingly cautious about Beijing's expanding influence, Hungary has chosen a different path, actively seeking to deepen its economic and political ties with the world's second-largest economy. Hungary was one of the first EU countries to join China's Belt and Road Initiative, signaling its willingness to become a key gateway for Chinese investment into Europe. Major infrastructure projects, like the Budapest-Belgrade Railway, are being built with Chinese loans and expertise, promising to transform Hungary into a vital transport and logistics hub connecting East and West. Chinese industrial giants such as KATL and BYD are investing billions to construct massive battery and electric vehicle factories in Hungary. These projects are not only creating thousands of jobs, but also positioning Hungary as a central player in Europe's green transition. Generous government subsidies and access to the EU's single market have made Hungary an attractive destination for Chinese capital and technology. In exchange for these economic benefits, Hungary has become one of China's most reliable allies within the European Union. Budapest frequently uses its veto power to block or water down EU statements critical of Beijing's human rights record or assertive foreign policy, effectively shielding China from unified European pressure. This close relationship has not gone unnoticed. It has sparked growing unease in Brussels and Washington, especially as Chinese technology companies gain a foothold in Hungary's critical infrastructure, including its 5G networks. Western officials worry that Hungary's actions could undermine collective security and the EU's ability to present a united front. As the European Union moves to de-risk its economic ties with China, Hungary is charting its own course, doubling down on its partnership with Beijing. The country is betting that deep engagement with China will secure its economic future, even as others pull back. This divergence is exposing a fundamental rift within the West over how to handle China's rise, one that could reshape the balance of power in Europe for years to come. In late 2024, Hungary passed its sovereignty protection law, claiming to defend against foreign interference. Critics say it's a tool to silence opposition and independent media, mirroring similar laws in Russia. The EU condemned the law as a violation of democracy and the rule of law, launching legal action against Budapest. The law signals Hungary's intent to insulate itself from EU oversight and align more closely with its eastern partners. This standoff is now a flashpoint in the battle over Europe's political future. Hungary's economic pivot is clear in the numbers. Over the past decade, the country has undergone a dramatic transformation in its approach to trade and investment. Once firmly anchored to the European Union, Hungary is now actively seeking new partners and opportunities beyond its traditional Western allies. Chinese investment now dwarfs that from other nations, with billions of euros flowing into Hungarian infrastructure, technology, and manufacturing sectors. This surge is not just a matter of numbers, it's reshaping the landscape of Hungarian business and industry. Projects like the massive CATL battery plant are leading the way, promising thousands of jobs and positioning Hungary as a key player in Europe's green transition. These investments are also bringing new skills, technologies, and supply chains into the country. As EU funds are frozen over rule of law concerns, Hungary finds itself at a crossroads. The loss of billions in EU support has forced the government to look elsewhere for economic lifelines. Hungary turns to China and eyes the expanding BRICS bloc, seeking to diversify its alliances and reduce its vulnerability to Western political pressures. The BRICS group, now including major economies from the global south like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, offers Hungary a new arena for economic cooperation and influence. BRICS represents nearly half the world's population, a staggering market of consumers and producers that could reshape global trade flows in the coming years. With a growing share of global GDP, BRICS is increasingly challenging Western economic dominance, offering alternative sources of capital, technology, and political support. Hungary is actively seeking partnership, sending delegations to BRICS summits and negotiating new trade agreements that could open doors to vast new markets. The hope is to tap new markets for Hungarian goods, from agricultural products to high-tech manufacturing, and to attract investment that can drive growth and innovation. At the same time, Hungary aims to reduce its reliance on the West, seeking greater economic independence and resilience in an increasingly uncertain world. The government is betting that Chinese capital, along with new BRICS partnerships, will help fill the gap left by frozen EU funds and drive the next phase of Hungary's development. Officials argue that the growth potential of BRICS economies, combined with China's willingness to invest, could outweigh the loss of European support and open up new avenues for prosperity. But this strategy carries significant risks. Overdependence on China could leave Hungary vulnerable to shifts in Chinese policy or global tensions, while the BRICS bloc itself faces internal divisions and competing interests. There is also uncertainty about BRICS's long-term cohesion, as its members often have divergent priorities and face their own economic and political challenges. Still, the trend is unmistakable. Hungary is reorienting its economy eastward, embracing new partners and redefining its place in the global order. The stakes are high, with the future of Hungary's prosperity and independence hanging in the balance as it navigates this bold new path. The outcome is far from certain, but one thing is clear: Hungary's economic future will be shaped by the choices it makes today, and by the shifting tides of global power. Hungary's defiance is the EU's most severe internal challenge yet. By blocking sanctions and unified statements, Budapest has paralyzed EU foreign policy and exposed the bloc's institutional weaknesses. China and Russia exploit these divisions, knowing Hungary can veto collective action. There's growing fear that other EU states may follow Hungary's example, threatening the Union's cohesion. Legal and financial pressure from Brussels has had limited effect, as Hungary compensates with Chinese investment. The EU faces a dilemma: act decisively and risk pushing Hungary further east, or do nothing and watch its authority erode. The outcome will shape the future of European unity. Hungary's eastward pivot is an economic gamble on a shifting global order. Orban's government aims to make Hungary a gateway for Eastern capital and technology into Europe, betting on prosperity through Chinese investment and BRICS ties. The rewards are visible: new factories, jobs, and infrastructure. But so are the risks: debt, dependency, and social tensions. Critics warn of debt-trap diplomacy and environmental costs, while supporters see a path to renewed competitiveness. The influx of foreign-owned factories has sparked debate over labor rights and local impact. Hungary's strategy prioritizes foreign capital, but the long-term costs remain uncertain. The country may become a hub for global trade, or find itself vulnerable to external pressures. The stakes are not just economic, but social and political as well. Hungary's actions are a symptom of a larger global power shift. By aligning with China, Hungary gives Beijing leverage to divide the EU from within, undermining collective power. NATO is alarmed by Hungary's security ties with China, fearing espionage and questioning Budapest's reliability as an ally. Some analysts argue Orban is simply adapting to a multipolar world, pursuing Hungary's interests amid waning Western dominance. Others see Hungary as a stress test for the EU. Is it a union of shared values, or just a loose economic alliance? The bloc's response to Hungary will define its identity for a generation. The stakes extend beyond Europe, affecting the global balance of power. How the EU handles Hungary will echo worldwide. Hungary's pivot is more than a diplomatic footnote. It's a defining moment for Europe. The move has exposed deep rifts in the Western alliance and challenged the EU's very identity. The outcome will shape global trade, security, and the future of democracy. Will Hungary's path be a cautionary tale or a model for new sovereignty? The answer is being written now, in the decisions of leaders and the will of citizens across Europe. The stakes are immense, and the world is watching. What do you think the future holds for Hungary and Europe? Join the conversation.